We all know Pedro Martinez was absolutely on another level and unreal for the Boston Red Sox, but how good was he really during that 2004 season? A look back on today's Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And you want to know the best part? It's free. So if it's free, there's no point in not checking it out because you really have nothing to lose. So start your day off the right way with Locked On Red Sox. Locked On is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Welcome to Locked On Red Sox, and welcome to episode 3 of the 2004 anniversary series. Every Thursday, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, or maybe are still newcomers to the show, I will be dropping an episode that looks back on the 2004 Red Sox team in some capacity in honor of it being the 20-year anniversary this year. So every Thursday you can expect a new episode as part of that series. Last week I actually had Lenny DiNardo on, who was a pitcher from that team. And he did spend a good portion of the season on the injured list, but he talked a lot about the vibes in the clubhouse that season and how the Red Sox really overcame all their challenges and won the World Series that year. And the biggest thing was that they had a lot of clubhouse leaders and a lot of guys who were leading by example and rubbing their winning mentality onto their teammates. And he really emphasized how many leaders that team had. And one of those leaders was Pedro Martinez. I mean, there aren't a lot of words to really do justice how good his career actually was and how massive of a piece he was for the Boston Red Sox in that 2004 playoff run. But he was so successful, and the craziest part is that 2004 was past his prime and wasn't even his best season, but he still pitched very well for Boston, and in the playoffs was just on another level and got the Red Sox the opportunities to win games, and he was a huge reason why the Red Sox came back in 2004 and won the World Series that year. So in terms of his history with the Boston Red Sox, he was traded to the Boston Red Sox in November 1997 when he was approaching free agency for Carl Pavano and Tony Armas Jr. He was then subsequently signed to a 6-year, $75 million contract with an option for a 7th year at $17 million. At the time, the Red Sox GM was Dan Duquette. There's a name from the past. This was at the time the largest ever contract awarded to a pitcher. He paid immediate dividends in 1998, though, because he compiled a 19-7 record that year and finished second in the AL in ERA, WHIP, strikeouts, and in Cy Young Award voting. So he had a very solid season for the Red Sox, and they were happy that it appeared that they made the right decision about a pitcher to bring in to help up their chances of winning a championship. And then in 1999, he finished 23-4 with a 2.07 ERA and 313 strikeouts. He did earn the pitching triple crown when he pitched 213 and a third innings across 31 games, 29 starts in that time. He led the entire majors with strikeouts per 9 innings and strikeout to walk ratios of 13.20 strikeouts per 9, and 8.46 as his strikeout to walk ratio. I mean, that strikes per 9 innings is crazy because you don't see a starting pitcher very often average double digits in strikeouts per 9 innings, and it's because they're not pitching as deep into games in general. So that alone is what made Pedro very impressive, is not only did he have these nasty numbers, but he was pitching so deep into games and doing it so effectively. That same season in 1999, he had even more accolades to his name. His FIP, which stands for Fielding Independent Pitching, which is basically a defense independent pitching statistic that measures a pitcher's effectiveness at limiting walks, home runs, and hits while accumulating strikeouts. So it's all of those things combined. How effectively is he getting guys to swing and miss while avoiding putting them in situations where they get on base in some capacity. So that number was 1.39, which was the lowest single season total in the majors since 1910 among pitchers who threw more than 35 innings. I mean, there's so much that this guy has done that you can't really put it all into words because of how good his career actually was. He also became just the 9th modern pitcher to record a second 300 strikeout season, along with Randy Johnson, who did it 6 times, Nolan Ryan, who did it 6 times, Sandy Koufax 3 times, Curt Schilling 3 times, among some others. He's the only 20th century pitcher to notch 300 strikeouts in a season without being at least 6 feet tall. I mean, can you believe it? This guy had so much going for it. And then he unanimously won his second Cy Young Award and finished second in the MVP ballot. The MVP result was controversial, though, because he received the most first place votes of any player, but was omitted from the ballots of 2 sports writers. So basically the situation was that Buster Olney, who was writing for the New York Times at the time, mused that the sentiment that pitchers should not be considered MVP candidates due to the existence of the pitcher-specific Cy Young Award essentially may have cost him the victory. But he had such a good season. Between April and May 1999, he struck out 10 or more batters in 7 consecutive starts. And then between August 1999 and April 2000, he achieved the same feat in 10 consecutive starts, averaging more than 15 strikeouts per 9 innings during that latter streak. In 1999, additionally, he recorded a strikeout in 40 consecutive innings, which at the time was a major league record. And for his career, he compiled 15 or more strikeouts in a game 10 times, which is tied with Roger Clemens for the 3rd most such games in history, behind Nolan Ryan's 27 and Randy Johnson's 29. He was named AL Pitcher of the Month in April, May, June, and September 1999, which is 4 times during that season. And he continued to dominate and showcased his dominance in the 1999 All-Star Game at Fenway Park. You know, I wish that Fenway would host the All-Star Game again. That would be so much fun. But 1999 was a really good season for him. He was a focal point of their playoff series against the Cleveland Indians. And then he followed up 1999 with a really good 2000 season en route to his 3rd Cy Young Award. His ERA of 1.74 was the lowest AL total since 1978. The total was about a third of that year's park-adjusted league ERA of 4.97. He had an 18-6 record that year. In his 6 losses, he recorded 60 strikeouts, 8 walks, and 30 hits allowed in 48 innings with a 2.44 ERA. And he also averaged 8 innings per start. His ERA in his losing games was lower than the best ERA in the NL across all games. Isn't that nuts? It's absolutely crazy. Across 1999 and 2000, he allowed 288 hits and 69 walks in 430 innings with 597 strikeouts and a 1.90 ERA. I mean, It's actually crazy if you think about how low his ERA was for pretty much his entire career in Boston. He was dominating, he was basically unhittable, and it was super fun to watch. Though he continued his dominance when healthy, carrying a sub-2 ERA to the midpoint of the following season, he did spend much of 2001 on what at the time was the disabled list with a rotator cuff injury as the Red Sox slumped to a poor finish. He finished with a 7-3 record, a 2.39 ERA, and 163 strikeouts in 116 innings. He then was healthy in 2002 and rebounded to lead the league with a 2.26 ERA and 239 strikeouts while going 20-4. And then came 2003, the dreaded year for the Boston Red Sox when they lost a heartbreaker against the New York Yankees in the playoffs, and we will never forget that or be allowed to live that down, but we got our revenge in 2004. In 2003, his record was 14-4. He led the league in ERA with a 2.22 and WHIP, which was 1.04, for the fifth time for each, and he finished second to league leader Esteban Loaiza by a single strikeout. He came in third for the 2003 Cy Young Award, which went to Toronto's Roy Halladay. So he still had a very good 2003. He was shutting opposing hitters down. His ERA was slightly higher than we had seen from him in other seasons, but it was still a crazy year. And then after all of that, we got to the very exciting 2004 season for Pedro, which I'm going to be talking about next. If you're looking for a good deal on tickets for sporting events or concerts or comedy shows, you name it, whatever it is, Game Time absolutely has you covered. I love the Game Time app because they give you lower prices than other ticketing vendors, and they give you a view from your seats so you know exactly what you're looking at. I actually got Red Sox tickets for this year off of Game Time. Great seats right behind home plate, no obstructed view, and you know that because Game Time gives you that view, and the tickets were reasonably priced, so that was a bonus for sure. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The key word there is guaranteed. They really will make sure that you're getting the best deals. So absolutely check out Game Time today. If you're looking to get into sports betting, or maybe you're already into it and want to win even more money, check out FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I'm telling you, FanDuel absolutely is the way to go. I've seen my fiance win so much money on it, and he's a happy camper, so that could be you too. So check out FanDuel today. Also, go to Locked On Sports today if you're trying to stay caught up in all things going on in sports. You can make the switch today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On Sports today is the place for you if you want to stay caught up in everything going on. So check that out today. I am here on the third week of the 20th anniversary series of the 2004 Boston Red Sox and their World Series championship. And today's episode is all about Pedro Martinez. He deserves all of this credit for his career and the time he spent in Boston. He's one of those players that you'll just never forget and never not associate with the Boston Red Sox. You know how certain players just will never be thought of with any other team than one specific one? That's the case here. He will always be a Boston Red Sox to me, and for obvious reasons, he just had such a decorative career there, and it was such a joy watching him pitch. Now, coming off of a pretty good career so far in Boston, he went into the 2004 season with a lot of expectations for himself, hoping to have another strong season on the mound, and the Red Sox had a goal that should be the goal for every team every year, which is to win the World Series. And Pedro was determined to help be the glue to that team that could lead a World Series team. And they had fun in the clubhouse that year. If you've watched any camaraderie among that team in videos or just in person at games, if you went to games that year, you just noticed that they had so much fun. And Pedro liked to have fun and enjoy himself, but he knew how to be serious when he had to be when he was pitching. So he was able to flip that switch pretty quickly, and that's something I admired about him. But Pedro didn't have his best season in 2004. He had an uncharacteristically high 3.90. He went 16-9, ranked second in the AL in strikeouts, and finished fourth in Cy Young voting. The Red Sox did win the AL wildcard berth, and then he pitched effectively overall in the playoffs. So although he had some struggles during the regular season, he overall pitched well in the playoffs. He earned the win in Game 2 of the ALDS, and in the ALCS, he recorded his only loss of the postseason, as well as a no decision. Then in Game 3 of the World Series, he pitched 7 shutout innings and retired the last 14 batters he faced. The Red Sox won the World Series in 4 games, securing their first championship in 86 years. So to say he had a huge part in that would be an understatement. I mean, he was truly the glue to that pitching staff, and he helped motivate these Red Sox players like no tomorrow, because he was hungry to win, as were so many guys in that clubhouse. But he did run into some struggles that year. In 2004, he pitched 16 games at home, had an ERA of 3.22, pitched 111.2 innings total, and allowed 89 hits, had 40 earned runs, 41 runs, and 12 home runs against him. He also walked 26 batters, 0 of them intentionally, threw 1 wild pitch, hit batters 9 times, and balked 0 times. So these are interesting stats. He looked pretty comfortable at home, was able to do his thing, and was able to pitch pretty well. On the road, you couldn't really say the same, though. He did struggle a bit more when the Red Sox were not playing at Fenway. He pitched 17 games on the road that year, had an ERA of 4.62 over 105.1 innings pitched. He allowed 104 hits, had 54 earned runs, 58 runs, and 14 home runs. He also walked 35 batters, again 0 intentionally, threw 1 wild pitch, hit batters 7 times, and balked 0 times. So he walked a good amount more batters on the road than he did at home. He also allowed 54 earned runs as opposed to 40, which is a pretty big difference. He also allowed 2 more home runs, 14 as opposed to 12. He allowed 104 hits on the road and just 89 at home. So he was a lot more unstoppable in the comfort of Fenway Park than he was on the road. And that tends to sometimes be the case with pitchers because they're more comfortable in one atmosphere, and he was used to the atmosphere at Fenway Park and just used to the mound there. So it's comforting when you're pitching at home. Whereas if you go on the road, you're not used to those fans as much. You don't know the crowd. You're not as comfortable on the mound there. So it's natural that his numbers would be higher on the road, but that definitely was what skewed his ERA a little bit more in that season overall, was because he was not nearly as polished on the road as he was at home. But he definitely was a true team leader that year, and that's something that I'll always admire about him. In total, in that postseason, he had a 2-1 record with an ERA of 4.00 and 26 strikeouts in 5 appearances. He won his first World Series that year, which is pretty cool, but he was able to redeem himself after a tough loss early on in the ALCS and helped the Red Sox to win the World Series. In the division series against the Angels, that series, the Red Sox were just on a roll. They knew that they were ready to go and they wanted to win. And Pedro pitched game 2 of that series following Curt Schilling, who pitched game 1. In game 2, the Red Sox won 8-3, and Pedro did get the win on the mound. So in that game, he gave up 6 hits and 3 earned runs. But the cool thing was he pitched 7 innings in that game and he struck out 6. So it's cool because you were able to see the longevity, see him pitch deep into the game. And that was common for him. It wasn't common for all pitchers in that era, and it's not nearly as common now. So he looked good in that game, was able to get the Red Sox the win. So that was very fun to be able to witness and be able to see the Red Sox then move on to the ALCS against the dreaded Yankees. In that very dramatic series against the Yankees, I mean, talk about an understatement too, just an unbelievable, phenomenal series for the Boston Red Sox. Pedro did pitch in game 2, which the Yankees won 3-1. He took the loss in that game. And game 3 was a tough one because the Yankees won 19-8. They won game 1 10-7. So that was at least a closer score in game 2. And the Yankees weren't just absolutely pounding Red Sox pitching. I mean, talk about embarrassing. Curt Schilling took the loss in game 1, and that was rough. And then the Red Sox just struggled. And then when the tide changed, the Red Sox won game 4 6-4. Game 5, 5-4, Game 6, 4-2, and Game 7, 10-3. So every game the Red Sox won in that series until the last one was close, and then they were just so hungry and ready to win by Game 7, so they went on this tear and they won 10-3. So Pedro, in that series, he ended up pitching in more circumstances than he thought. He pitched in 3 games and pitched to the tune of a 6.23 ERA. He pitched 13 total innings, giving up 14 hits and 9 earned runs and striking out 14 batters. So not exactly the best productivity level from him. But one of the biggest things that was surprising in that series was that the Red Sox obviously came back to win 3 games after being down 3-0, and then all of a sudden they found themselves in a do-or-die Game 7. The Red Sox were up 7-2 in the 7th inning, and then they put Martínez on the mound with nothing less than literally the fate of the season on the line. He was very surprised that he was put in at that moment because he was a starter and he very rarely made relief appearances like that. And with all that pressure in a game like that, the Red Sox just trusted him to go out there and get it done. He said he had his cleats off. He sat close to the heater because he was cold, and he never thought that he was going to be going into the game. So it certainly caught him by a lot of surprise that he went in, and he was welcomed by a stadium crowd of about 60,000 people chanting, "Who's your daddy?" because he had admitted earlier in the season that the Yankees were his daddy because he struggled against them. But he made it out of the inning and notched a huge strikeout in the process. And then the Red Sox eventually made it to the World Series. But people easily do forget about that game, that few have ever dominated as a pitcher quite like Pedro. Yet by 2004, he was on the back end of his career, and he still got out of it and still got it done. So that's what makes it even more impressive about what he did in that game, and the fact that he was able to keep his composure and get out of the inning for the Boston Red Sox. So lots of Pedro moments that we can reminisce about and be excited about. But coming up, I'm going to be talking about the regular season he had in 2004 that led up to that dramatic postseason run. You can have a fun way now to play daily fantasy sports with PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Spring training is over and baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePicks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less and add them to your PrizePicks entry today. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's a first deposit match up to $100 with code LOCKEDONMLB. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. It's PrizePicks. Who doesn't love easy? PrizePicks makes it so good for you to easily win money, so might as well check it out. This is also a reminder to check out Locked On Sports today if you want to stay caught up in all things going on in sports without having to feel like you have to scroll through Twitter all the time and look for those accounts that break news. You can just head to Locked On Sports today, and we as a network will keep you caught up in everything going on in sports. So check that out today, either on YouTube or on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Pedro Martinez had a very decorative career when he was pitching in Boston, and that ended for him after that 2004 World Series run for the Red Sox. I mean, after they won the World Series that year, he became a free agent and signed with the Mets. It was a 4-year, $53 million contract. In 2005, his first season as a Met, he posted a 15-8 record with a 2.82 ERA, 208 strikeouts, and a league-leading 0.95 WHIP. So he was still dominating, but it was definitely weird not seeing him in a Red Sox uniform. Now, when it came to his success in Boston, he had a lot of games that he pitched very well in. In the World Series, the Red Sox swept the Cardinals. They won Game 1 11-9, Game 2 6-2, Game 3 4-1, and Game 4 3-0. He got the win in Game 3, which was nice for him. So in the World Series, when he was pitching, he was able to stay focused. He made that one appearance to a 0 ERA because he didn't give up any runs, pitched 7 innings, giving up just 3 hits. He walked 2 and he struck out 6. So that was the last appearance he made in a Boston Red Sox uniform, and it was super weird and super sad. But during the regular season, he wasn't completely perfect all season long. He did have some bumps in the road. His first start of the season was April 4th at the Orioles, when he pitched 6 innings, struck out 5, gave up 7 hits and 2 earned runs, including a home run. So that was not bad. I mean, he definitely had better stuff before, but that's a pretty good start by all senses of the word. Is considered a quality start. So he pitched well and then made his next start on April 10th versus the Blue Jays. Pitched 7.2 innings, giving up 4 hits and just 1 earned run. So that was another very good start for him. Then things fell apart for him a little bit and bumped his ERA up significantly. On April 15th, when the Red Sox were hosting the Orioles, he pitched 5 innings, struck out 3, but gave up 8 hits and 7 earned runs. So his ERA got bumped up to a 12.6 in that game. He was all over the place, just did not have it, and every pitcher has bad outings, and that was a bad outing for him. Then he was able to bounce back in his next start on April 20th at the Blue Jays. He pitched 7 innings, giving up 5 hits and 1 earned run, and his ERA went back down to a 1.29. So he was able to have very good starts early on in the season mixed in with one bad one. And then he ended April pitching at the Yankees on April 25th and gave up 0 earned runs over 7 innings. So besides that one start, he had a good April. And by the way, the Red Sox that year started off and played divisional opponents the whole month of April. I wish it was like that now. They were seeing the Yankees 3 weeks into the season, and it's too bad that things are not that way now, because I hate how the Red Sox wait until it's deep into the season to get the Yankees, like this year when they don't see the Yankees till July. So that was kind of cool. It was all divisional opponents early on. But generally, he had good outings. He was averaging about 7 innings a start, giving up 2 or 3 runs most days that he was pitching. He did give up 6 earned runs on May 1st at the Rangers. So not his best outing either. He only made it through 4 innings that day. And another bad outing that happened during the season that I pinpointed and noticed was later on in the season when the Red Sox were playing the Yankees on September 19th. He gave up 8 earned runs over 5 innings pitched. So that's another standout performance that he had that season that wasn't as effective. He also did the same on July 21st versus the Orioles, giving up 8 earned runs. So if you notice, based on this, there were definitely multiple outings in which he didn't have his best stuff, and that was something that I think people had to get used to because we weren't seeing that from Pedro in the past because he just had an unbelievable career, and he was not having very many outings at all where he wasn't pitching well, and we saw a few more of those in 2004, so that's how Red Sox fans felt like he just was past his prime at that point. But I mean, the guy still had that good season he had, like I talked about earlier. So just some outliers that he had there during the regular season, but overall, when he finished the regular season, it was that 3.90 ERA with 217 innings pitched. He struck out 227 batters, gave up 193 hits and 94 earned runs, with 99 runs scored, 26 home runs, and 61 walks. He also hit 16 batters on the season. So that was his final stat line for the regular season that year, and then he went into the postseason and just wanted nothing but to win, and that was something I really admired about Pedro, was he had that dog in him. He really loved playing in Boston and loved being around the Boston crowd, and he wanted to see this crowd finally be happy after an 86-year drought of not having won a championship. And that's what the vibe was for this Red Sox team in general, was a team that just really wanted to win, and nothing else really mattered at that point in that season. They loved playing together, they wanted to win, and things needed to go their way, and they did. So I'm very proud of the Red Sox in 2004. That's just such an understatement. Again, words can't even describe the feeling of that Red Sox team winning, and Pedro being a huge part of that is something that people can never take away from him. And when he finally retired, he became an absolute legend in Boston. The Red Sox retired his jersey, so that was a cool moment for him. So he'll just forever go down as a Boston Red Sox legend, and when you think of the faces of the Boston Red Sox, Pedro is up there as one of them. And when you look at a guy who has so many career accolades in Boston, he deserves a lot of that credit for that 2004 World Series victory, because if you take him out of the pitching rotation, the reality is you don't win the World Series that year, because yes, he didn't have the most glamorous regular season in 2004, but if you don't have his outings in the 2004 postseason, you don't come back from being down 3-0 by any means, and you don't come back and win the World Series, and you don't have his attitude that helped fuel the energy the Red Sox needed to win. So it's all a spiral effect of, there's a special place for Pedro on this Boston Red Sox team. There always will be. And he's an absolute legend. And the 2004 season was absolutely legendary. You can catch more episodes of this series over the next 7 weeks every Thursday. There will be a 20th anniversary episode to honor the 2004 Boston Red Sox. I will have some special guests moving forward as well, and continuing to highlight some key moments and key players from that season. But if there's anybody or anything specific that you want to hear more about from the 2004 season, please let me know. Send me a message on Twitter or comment here on YouTube and let me know what you want to have me talk about, because I want to make this a special experience for you too, and we can take a ride back in time to what was such an incredible season for the Boston Red Sox community. As always, keep the faith. The 2004 Red Sox know that best. Go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.